Power is never given, it is taken. Every man who waits for fortune to smile upon him waits in vain. The world is a battlefield, disguised as a marketplace, a court, a senate, or a boardroom. Those who hesitate are ruled, and those who move with precision, with cold resolve, impose their will upon the hesitant. To focus on yourself until you win is not vanity, it is survival. For no man commands others until he has mastered his own hungers, his own fears, his own restless mind. Victory begins in silence. Speak less than you know, reveal less than you feel, and let your enemies misjudge your patience as weakness. Time is the ally of the calculating. Those who rush burn their strength too quickly. Those who endure, who sharpen their intent like a blade in the dark, strike when the moment is ripest and leave no chance for reprisal. To focus on yourself is to gather power in secret, while others scatter theirs in vanity and noise. Loyalty is fragile, and love is fickle. Men promise much, but betray when the winds of advantage shift. Do not rest your fate on the loyalty of others. Build your fortress within your own discipline, your own cunning, your own capacity to adapt. If they follow you, it must be out of necessity, not affection. Let them need you more than you need them, for dependence is the chain that binds the weak to the strong. Do not chase applause, for applause dies with the moment. Seek control, for control bends the future. Influence is a shadow cast by strength, and strength is born of ruthless focus. Every distraction, every indulgence, every wasted hour is tribute paid to your rival. To win, you must deny them this tribute. You must consume yourself with the singular fire of dominion. Understand that fear governs more surely than love. Men will abandon what they admire, but they rarely defy what they dread. Let your presence command respect before it seeks affection. To be loved without fear is to be at the mercy of others. To be feared without love is still to be obeyed. Balance is delicate, but necessity tilts the scale toward fear, for fear is the stronger tether. The theater of power demands masks. Appear merciful when cruelty is useful. Appear just when injustice secures your throne. Appear humble when pride would provoke rebellion. Let the world see virtue, while beneath it you wield necessity. The lion does not roar before it kills. It stalks in silence, strikes with certainty, and lets the forest remember its shadow. You are not owed victory. You are not entitled to peace. You are not destined to triumph. These illusions destroy princes and paupers alike. What you are owed is nothing. What you must take is everything. And the price is relentless focus. To dominate, you must be willing to sacrifice comfort, abandon illusions, and embrace the solitude of command. So focus on you until you win. For in the end, the world divides itself into two kinds of men, those who dominate and those who are dominated. There is no middle ground. The crown is not placed on the head of the worthy. It is seized by the hand that dares to close around it, and once you wear it, guard it as if every shadow plots to take it from you, because they do. To endure is to rule yourself when the world seeks to rule you. The first kingdom a man must govern is his own spirit, for if he is conquered there, all other victories are illusions. Discipline is the chain that binds chaos into order, the shield against temptation, the silent weapon no rival can steal. He who cannot command himself will be commanded by others, and his life will be a theater where his enemies write the script. To focus on yourself is to refuse such a fate, to sharpen your will until it becomes unbreakable, until no storm nor whisper of betrayal can bend you. Power is never a gift. It is wrested from the unwilling, seized in moments of chance, and held only by vigilance. The ambitious must learn that weakness invites predators. If you are not feared, you will be tested. If you are not respected, you will be dismissed. If you are neither, you will be devoured. The world does not pity the devoured, it forgets them. Therefore, guard your strength as a miser guards gold. Show it sparingly, invest it carefully, and let its weight increase in silence until the day it must be unleashed. Trust is the most expensive coin in politics, yet it is counterfeit in most hands. Men swear loyalty to advantage, not to truth. They follow when it profits them and abandon when ruin approaches. A wise man calculates this in advance and builds his designs on the certainty of self, not the promises of others. To inspire loyalty, bind them with necessity. To command obedience, bind them with fear. And if they must love you, let that love be directed at the image you project, not the naked truth of your heart. The face you wear must be crafted, not revealed. Appear compassionate, but keep cruelty ready. Appear humble, but never forget pride. Appear honest, but always preserve secrets. To show all of yourself is to disarm yourself. The strong wear masks not to deceive the world, but to protect themselves from it. For men are wolves clothed as sheep, and he who walks unguarded will find teeth where he expected hands. Remember that fortune is fickle, but preparation is steadfast. Chance may open doors, but only the prepared can walk through them without stumbling. Luck favors the vigilant, not the idle. Focus on yourself, sharpen your skills, and fortify your position so that when fortune shifts, as it always does, you stand unshaken while others collapse in confusion. Dominate or be dominated, this is not cruelty. It is the law of survival. To live without command is to drift, to serve, to be forgotten. But to claim command is to accept the solitude of the summit, where trust is scarce, betrayal is constant, and vigilance is eternal. Yet it is there, and only there, that a man becomes more than a servant of fate. The will to command is forged in fire and sharpened in exile. Men who have known only comfort cannot rule, for they mistake fortune for strength and approval for power. It is suffering that sculpts endurance, betrayal that awakens foresight, and loss that teaches a man to clutch at opportunity with unrelenting hand. Those who rise after the world has broken them carry an authority no crown can grant, for they have already been through the crucible where fear is burned away. To focus on yourself is to enter that crucible willingly, to strip away weakness until only the iron of resolve remains. The machinery of power is not guided by sentiment, but by necessity. Nations, companies, and families alike are bound by the same invisible law. Survival first, ideals later. Those who forget this perish with dignity on their lips, but defeat in their hands. To endure, one must sometimes betray a promise, cut away an ally, or sacrifice reputation to preserve dominion. Appearances may shatter, but the throne endures for those who understand that necessity excuses what virtue condemns. The weak cling to ideals as shields, and they are pierced. The strong wield necessity as a blade, and they survive. Men are predictable in their impulses, though they believe themselves unique. They desire advantage, they fear loss, they admire strength, and they despise weakness. A ruler must read these instincts as a hunter reads tracks in the soil. Do not speak to reason when appetite rules them. Do not appeal to morality when fear drives them. Align their interests with yours, and they will follow you even into ruin. Oppose their instincts, and they will abandon you at the first shadow of risk. To focus on yourself is to see clearly through the illusions others project and grasp the levers that truly move them. Control is never total, but it must always appear so. Even when the ground shifts beneath you, never let uncertainty show. Men are steadied not by your truth, but by your performance. Doubt spreads faster than fire. Once lit, it consumes loyalty, order, and faith. To prevent it, you must master the art of theater mask fear with calm, disguise hesitation with confidence, and cloak ruthlessness in necessity. Power is a stage where the strongest actor dictates the script, and the audience obeys without knowing they are watching a play. Ambition is both poison and cure. Left ungoverned, it drives men to recklessness and destruction. But disciplined, it becomes the engine of empires. The ambitious man who cannot focus devours himself. The ambitious man who focuses devours the world. To master ambition, you must narrow it, refine it, and direct it like an arrow at the heart of your objective. Scatter it across too many desires, and you will find yourself exhausted, surrounded by ashes and failures. But wield it with precision, and you will pierce through obstacles that others thought immovable. In the end, dominion is not a matter of fairness, but of force. The earth remembers not the just, but the victorious. Tombs of the virtuous crumble without inscription, but the names of conquerors are carved into the memory of generations. Focus on yourself until you win, for history does not weep for those who almost triumphed. It records only those who seized the crown, held it, and defended it until death. The path of domination is not paved with certainties, but with risks measured and embraced. To hesitate before danger is to invite destruction, for fortune is seized by those who dare, while others linger in calculation that never ends. Yet reckless daring is no less fatal, for it squanders strength and exposes the unprepared to ruin. True mastery lies in the balance, bold enough to strike when others doubt, disciplined enough to withdraw when the field offers no victory. The man who focuses on himself learns this balance, for he studies his own limits, his own strengths, and makes war upon his weaknesses until they submit. Every rival you face is driven by the same instincts you carry within. They too hunger for recognition, for advantage, for control. To understand them, look first into yourself. Envy, pride, fear, greed, these are the architects of every betrayal and every alliance. When you know how these forces move within you, you will know how to pull their strings in others. He who is blind to his own nature is forever the puppet of unseen hands, while he who studies his shadow learns how to cast it long over the world. Appearances govern the masses more than truth. Men do not follow reality, they follow perception. If you are weak but appear strong, they will hesitate to test you. If you are strong but appear weak, they will plot against you until their courage betrays them. Therefore, cultivate the mask that serves your survival. Power is not destroyed by deception, it is preserved by it. Those who believe truth alone secures loyalty are quickly abandoned, for truth is bitter and unwelcome, while appearances soothe and compel. Remember that cruelty, when necessary, is mercy disguised. A decisive blow, struck once, is kinder than endless hesitation that breeds chaos. A ruler who refuses to act harshly when survival demands it invites greater suffering for all. Yet cruelty must be calculated, never wanton. Strike not to indulge wrath, but to establish order. When blood is shed, let it be for purpose, and let it serve as a lesson that endures. Mercy scattered too freely makes men bold in their disobedience. Severity, when rare but absolute, teaches obedience more deeply than 1,000 indulgences. The solitude of power is the price of command. To sit at the summit is to stand alone, for every hand that greets you conceals ambition, and every smile hides calculation. To depend on friendship is to expose your flank. Better to respect allies than to trust them. Better to reward service than to lean on loyalty. He who focuses on himself accepts this solitude, not as a curse, but as a shield, for it frees him from illusions and binds him only to the necessity of his purpose. Victory demands vigilance. What is won today can be lost tomorrow through negligence. A single moment of weakness can erase years of dominance. The watchtower of power must never be unmanned, the walls of ambition never unguarded. Sleep with one eye open, for envy never rests, and betrayal ripens in silence. Yet do not let fear hollow you, let it sharpen you. The man who fears too much paralyzes himself, but the man who denies fear entirely blinds himself. To carry fear as a tool, not a master, is the art of enduring rulers. Strength is not measured by the victories paraded in public, but by the defeats endured in silence. Every man who rises to command has tasted humiliation, betrayal, and loss. The difference lies in whether he allows these wounds to cripple him or to harden him. To focus on yourself until you win is to turn every scar into a lesson, every disappointment into sharpened vigilance, every exile into preparation for return. The weak hide from their failures. The strong dissect them until failure itself becomes a servant of their ambition. The battlefield of power is fought as much in the mind as in the world. He who governs his thoughts governs his destiny. Doubt is the first assassin of rulers, for it corrodes decision, and indecision is fatal. The man who waits for perfect certainty waits for eternity and dies ruled by bolder men. Better to act with imperfect knowledge than to perish in hesitation. Decisions carve reality. Hesitation leaves you at the mercy of those who decide for you. Men admire virtue when it does not cost them. They praise honesty until it exposes them. They honor generosity until it no longer benefits them. Understand this, and you will no longer be surprised when admiration turns to betrayal, when praise turns to envy, when devotion turns to resentment. Govern yourself by necessity, not by the illusions of men's affections. To expect gratitude is to prepare for disappointment. To expect betrayal is to be armed when it comes. Control does not mean crushing every rival at once. It means breaking them piece by piece until resistance itself seems impossible. Sometimes patience destroys faster than violence, for neglect weakens the proud, and silence strangles the ambitious. To rule is to know when to strike, when to delay, and when to let your enemies consume themselves. The strongest hand is often the one that moves least, because its stillness forces others into desperate motion. Fear is a currency more stable than love. Love is given freely and taken away as quickly. Fear is earned and remembered, yet fear must be wielded with precision. Too little and obedience crumbles, too much and rebellion brews. The wise ruler instills fear in doses enough to command respect, not so much as to ignite vengeance. It is not cruelty itself that topples rulers, but cruelty without measure, cruelty without necessity. To dominate is not to destroy everything in your path, but to bend the world to your direction. The rivers of politics, commerce, and war can never be stopped, but they can be redirected by the man who sees further than others. He who focuses on himself learns to read the currents of necessity, to ride them when they serve his purpose, and to dam them when they threaten his foundation. Power is not brute force alone. It is foresight sharpened into action. Ambition is a flame that consumes those who cannot contain it. Many are devoured by their own hunger because they mistake appetite for strength. The man who survives is the one who learns to discipline desire, to channel it as a weapon instead of a fire that burns indiscriminately. To focus on yourself until you win is to forge ambition into steel, flexible enough to bend without breaking, sharp enough to cut through every obstacle. The undisciplined dreamer collapses under the weight of his own illusions, but the disciplined ruler turns vision into conquest. The masses are restless, guided less by reason than by fear, envy, and hope. They can be stirred to loyalty, but never permanently. Their devotion is the tide. It rises, it falls, it shifts with the moon of fortune. A wise leader never builds his foundation on such waters. Instead, he builds dams and channels, shaping their flow without trusting their constancy. He who forgets this truth is swept away when the tide inevitably turns. He who remembers it rides the tide as if it were his servant, never his master. Betrayal is not an accident of politics. It is its nature. Every alliance carries within it the seed of treachery, for men are faithful only until the scale of advantage tips. To expect loyalty is to prepare for disappointment. To plan for betrayal is to remain unshaken when it arrives. Therefore, let trust be a tool, not a refuge. Extend it when it brings you gain. Withdraw it when it threatens your position. Better to stand alone on a fortress of caution than to fall surrounded by false allies. Deception is not a shameful act, but the language of survival. The world does not reward naked truth. It rewards convincing illusion. Appear virtuous when vice secures your rule. Appear humble when pride would expose you to envy. Appear unknowing when concealment buys you time. The man who shows his entire hand is already defeated, for his enemies require only patience to undo him. The mask you wear is not falsehood, it is armor. Every throne is built on calculation. Chance may elevate a man for a moment, but only vigilance sustains him. Power is lost, not by force alone, but by negligence, by the slow corrosion of discipline, by the arrogance that blinds rulers to the shifting winds around them. Guard yourself against complacency, for the greatest enemy of a ruler is not always rebellion from without, but decay from within. The man who focuses on himself until he wins accepts the loneliness of command, the weight of vigilance, and the necessity of deception. He knows that domination is not a single act, but a continual labor, an endless sharpening of the blade, a perpetual guarding of the crown. To dominate is not merely to rise, it is to remain standing while all others fall. The essence of power is not possession but control, for what is possessed can be stolen, but what is controlled endures through fear, dependency, and necessity. A ruler must not be content with titles or treasures. He must secure the minds and instincts of those around him. To hold dominion over thought is to wield chains stronger than iron, for men will bind themselves willingly to what they believe they cannot live without. Focus on yourself until you become indispensable, until your absence feels like ruin to those who rely upon you. In that moment, your dominance becomes unassailable. Fortune favors the watchful, but it abandons the complacent. History is littered with men who rose swiftly, only to be cast down because they believed victory was permanent. There is no permanence in power. There is only the struggle renewed each day. To rest is to invite rivals to gather strength. To grow careless is to open a gate to betrayal. Focus is not merely the path to triumph, it is the shield that preserves it. Every sunrise demands the same vigilance as the day before, for envy never sleeps and ambition never tires. In every conflict, deception is the first strike, discipline the second, and force the last. The man who leads with force alone spends his strength too quickly, drawing resistance from those who might otherwise have submitted. But the man who cloaks his intent, who moves with subtlety, forces his enemies to reveal themselves before he has raised a hand. War and politics share this law. The unseen blade cuts deepest, and the battle won without open combat is the most enduring. Men often believe themselves masters of their choices, yet their actions are guided by forces they do not acknowledge. Fear, greed, and vanity rule them more surely than reason. To command is to exploit this blindness, to place before them illusions that stir their instincts while concealing the hand that directs them. Few will ever see the strings that bind them. Fewer still will care, so long as the illusion serves their comfort. To focus on yourself until you win is to become the invisible hand that shapes destinies while others believe they move freely. Do not mistake silence for peace or calm for security. Beneath every surface lies unrest, and beneath every smile lies calculation. The wise man listens to what is not said, watches what is not shown, and prepares for what others deny. To dominate is not to trust the present appearance of order, but to anticipate the coming storm. The ruler who fails to see the invisible currents of discontent is undone not by force, but by blindness. Domination is not a moment of triumph, but a state of endurance. It is the art of surviving betrayal, of outlasting envy, of remaining immovable when others collapse under the weight of their illusions. It is a fire that must be fed, a fortress that must be guarded, a mask that must never slip. To dominate is to accept that every victory is temporary unless defended, and every throne is fragile unless fortified daily with vigilance and will. Power is an endless contest of perception. Men do not follow reality. They follow the shadows that seem real to them. If you wish to rule, do not waste yourself correcting illusions, shape them. Control what men see, and you will not need to fight what they believe. A throne is not built upon stone alone, but upon the theater of appearances. To focus on yourself until you win is to learn this theater, to master the art of showing strength when you are uncertain, of displaying calm when chaos surrounds you, of concealing necessity beneath the mask of virtue. He who dictates appearances dictates obedience. Every man has enemies, but not every man has the wisdom to use them. A rival can be a threat, but he can also be a mirror. In his hatred, he reveals your vulnerabilities. In his ambition, he uncovers the path he believes is open to you. Learn from him before you destroy him. Exploit his urgency, his pride, his recklessness. Let him rush where you wait. Let him burn where you calculate. To conquer an enemy is not always to strike him down, but to make his own flaws undo him while you remain untouched. Fear is a fortress, but it must not become a prison. He who rules only through terror may secure obedience but not stability. Terror must be precise, not constant, sharp, not blunt. It must remind men of your power without suffocating them, for suffocation breeds revolt. The art of fear lies in balance enough to hold them in place, not enough to drive them to desperation. Just as the bowstring must be tight to launch the arrow, yet not so tight it snaps, so must fear be held at the point of control, never excess. Men will always resent authority, but they accept it when it is cloaked in necessity. If you impose hardship, let it appear inevitable. If you demand sacrifice, let it seem shared. If you tighten control, let it be masked as protection. When men believe they submit to destiny rather than to your will, they do not resist, they comply. To focus on yourself until you win is to master not only force, but the art of framing necessity as fate. Remember that ambition is never extinguished in others, only delayed. Even when you crush a rival, another watches and waits. The throne you hold is not a monument, but a seat in a game without end. The weak dream of rest, but the wise ruler knows there is no rest in power, only vigilance. He accepts this as the nature of his existence and does not curse it, for domination is not a burden to the one who has embraced it. It is the very condition of his survival. The solitude of command is the truest test of strength. Friends vanish, allies shift, flatterers surround you, yet none can carry the weight of your decisions. To lead is to walk a path where praise and hatred are both unreliable, where your only constant companion is necessity. This solitude is not a curse, but a crucible. It strips away illusions and demands that you face the reality others flee. He who cannot endure it is unfit to rule. He who embraces it becomes untouchable. To command is to live in a perpetual state of readiness. The ruler who waits until the threat appears is already defeated, for every danger ripens in silence before it erupts in force. The wise anticipate by studying men, by watching the smallest tremors of discontent, by reading hesitation in the eyes of allies and eagerness in the movements of rivals. He prepares before the storm breaks, so when others are seized by panic, he acts with calm inevitability. To focus on yourself until you win is to cultivate this readiness, to train your mind to see in shadows what others ignore in daylight. No throne stands without enemies, and no crown rests on a head without target. Hatred is the natural cost of command, for every decision wounds someone, every success provokes envy, every act of survival deprives another of advantage. Do not seek to be loved by all. Such a dream is the refuge of children. Seek instead to be too strong to be challenged, too necessary to be abandoned, too feared to be betrayed without consequence. Love is fleeting, necessity endures. The ruler who is indispensable to his subjects commands them long after affection has faded. Deception is not simply a weapon, it is a shield. By concealing your true intent, you deny enemies the chance to prepare. By disguising weakness, you prevent them from striking. By crafting illusions of strength, you deter those who would otherwise test you. Men are guided not by truth, but by what they believe to be true. Therefore, control belief, and you control the battlefield. The one who shows all of himself becomes vulnerable. The one who shows only what is useful remains untouchable. Even cruelty, when used with calculation, can be an instrument of order. Disorder spreads when men believe the ruler is hesitant to act, when punishment is delayed or uncertain. Strike swiftly when you must, and then cease. Let fear linger longer than the act itself. For men forget kindness but remember severity. Mercy without discipline is weakness. Severity without measure is tyranny. Between the two lies the path of endurance, the path that makes obedience preferable to rebellion. The true enemy of rulers is not always rebellion or war, but complacency. Comfort dulls vigilance. Stability invites arrogance. Many who rise with discipline fall with indulgence. They forget the hunger that sharpened their ambition and grow soft upon the luxuries of victory. But the world does not rest, and rivals do not sleep. To survive, you must live as if defeat is always one step behind you. The moment you believe yourself safe, the blade is already at your throat. Focus on yourself until you win, and when you win, focus still more. For triumph is not the end of struggle, but its beginning anew. Victory is not a resting place, but a higher battleground where enemies multiply, expectations sharpen, and betrayal becomes more costly. Domination is not a single act of conquest. It is a lifelong discipline. It is the refusal to surrender your vigilance, the rejection of weakness, the acceptance that survival demands constant war against complacency and illusion. Domination is sustained not by chance, but by architecture. Every act must be a brick, every decision a wall, every sacrifice a foundation. The careless ruler builds loosely and marvels at his height, yet the first tremor of fortune collapses his house. The calculating ruler builds deep into the earth, unseen, uncelebrated, but immovable. To focus on yourself until you win is to become an architect of your own power, layering foresight upon patience, vigilance upon discipline, until what you construct cannot be toppled by the storms that erase lesser men. Men will always measure you against their own desires. They will call you cruel if you deny them indulgence, unjust if you deny them advantage, arrogant if you refuse their chains. Ignore their cries, for the judgment of the governed is fickle, and their memory is shorter than their gratitude. Rule not for their affection, but for their obedience, not for their applause, but for their dependence. Affection drifts like smoke, but dependence binds like iron. He who makes himself necessary outlives both hatred and love. The hand that governs must learn to be both velvet and steel. Too soft, and it is ignored. Too hard, and it is resisted. The wise ruler strikes with precision, never in excess, never without purpose. Severity must seem inevitable, never personal. If they fear you, let them also believe that fear is the natural order, not your whim. If they respect you, let them never forget that respect is born of necessity, not choice. The hand that balances mercy and ruthlessness does not tremble, for it moves only in accordance with survival. Deceit is not corruption, but strategy. The truth is a blade too sharp to wield naked. It must be concealed in the scabbard of illusion. Appearances pacify, illusions guide, and masks protect. Those who despise deception reveal their own weakness, for they cling to the fantasy that the world is just. The ruler knows that the world is not just. It is merely shaped by those strong enough to impose form upon it. To deceive is not to betray reality, but to command it. Remember that your enemies will always believe they are close to victory. Let them believe. Encourage their arrogance, feed their illusions, and watch as they stumble into traps you laid long before their ambition awoke. Patience is a weapon as sharp as any sword, for it allows the strong to let the weak destroy themselves. When the moment comes, strike not only with force, but with inevitability, so that your triumph appears not as conquest, but as destiny fulfilled. Domination is not a crown upon your head, but a weight upon your shoulders. It demands constant vigilance, endless calculation, and the solitude of one who walks where others dare not tread. To command is to embrace necessity without hesitation, to see clearly without comfort, to act without regret. Focus on yourself until you win, and when you win, remember that the struggle has only changed its shape, not ended. For to be dominant is not to rest, it is to remain unshaken, while the world conspires ceaselessly to topple you. The art of survival lies not in resisting every tide, but in bending with it until it carries you where you wish to go. Force alone exhausts itself, but cunning reshapes the currents. The man who focuses on himself learns to yield without surrender, to retreat without defeat, to disguise weakness as strategy until the moment comes to reverse the flow. Victory is not always in the strike. Often, it is in the patience to let rivals reveal their haste, their vanity, their blind spots. What is gained without struggle is fragile, but what is seized through waiting and calculation endures. Every ruler must learn that men rarely seek justice. They seek advantage cloaked in the name of justice. They praise fairness only when it benefits them, and they denounce tyranny only when they are excluded from it. Understanding this frees you from the trap of trying to please them. Govern instead by necessity, for necessity is the one law no man can deny. When they oppose you, ensure that obedience offers them safety, and rebellion offers only ruin. They will choose the path that preserves their lives, even if they curse your name as they walk it. Do not underestimate the power of spectacle. Men remember images more than decrees, symbols more than truths. A single act of decisive power can echo longer than 100 speeches. A ruler who punishes with ceremony, who rewards with drama, who wraps his actions in the cloth of legend, controls not only the present, but the memory of generations. Appearances, once cemented in the minds of the people, outlast the reality that gave birth to them. To dominate is not only to command the moment, but to command its remembrance. Beware of ease, for it is the silent assassin of rulers. Hardship sharpens the blade, but comfort dulls it. The man who grows accustomed to praise, to obedience, to stability, forgets that every day is a new contest for survival. The enemies who once feared him begin to sense his lethargy. The allies who once depended on him begin to doubt his strength. To focus on yourself until you win is to guard against this decay, to remain disciplined in victory, to maintain hunger even when the table before you overflows. Allies are useful but never eternal. Treat them as tools of circumstance, not extensions of yourself. Bind them with rewards when possible, with necessity when required, with fear when unavoidable. Never grant them the illusion that they are irreplaceable, for in that moment they will seek to replace you. Better to remind them always that their fortunes are tied to yours, and that separation from you leads only to their own diminishment. A ruler who trusts too much in the permanence of alliances prepares his own downfall. The throne is not won once, it must be won every day. Each decision is a new contest, each moment a new defense of your dominion. What you build today can be undone tomorrow, by negligence, by arrogance, by forgetfulness. Power is not a possession, but a struggle renewed with every breath. To dominate is to accept that you live not in peace, but in perpetual war. A war waged not always with armies, but with words, illusions, and silence. The man who accepts this truth and embraces it without resentment becomes untouchable, for he no longer expects rest, he expects only to endure. The weight of command is borne not by strength of body, but by strength of mind. The armies may march in your name, but it is your will alone that holds them together. The council may sit at your side, but it is your judgment that binds their chaos into order. If your mind falters, no fortress can protect you, no guard can shield you, no law can preserve you. To focus on yourself until you win is to cultivate this inner fortress, to strip away hesitation, to silence doubt, to become the unshaken center around which all else must revolve. Men are drawn to certainty like soldiers to a banner. They crave direction, even as they pretend to resist it. A ruler who hesitates loses their faith, but one who decides rightly or wrongly captures their obedience. It is better to command with flawed judgment than to waver in pursuit of perfection. For hesitation breeds confusion, and confusion breeds revolt. Domination requires that decisions fall like hammer blows, measured, final, undeniable. Once delivered, they become reality, and reality reshapes itself to match the will of the decisive. Secrecy is the lifeblood of survival. Never let your true designs be fully seen, for men conspire against what they understand. When your movements are clouded, they remain cautious. When your thoughts are hidden, they remain unprepared. The ruler who reveals too much invites his own undoing, for the enemy will always attack where he is most visible. Better to be underestimated than to be fully known. Mystery disarms more effectively than 1,000 swords, for it paralyzes the imagination of those who fear what they cannot see. Fortune is a wild beast that respects only the hand that dares to seize it. It does not linger for the cautious, nor does it bow to the timid. To command fortune, you must strike when it hesitates, exploit when it falters, press forward when others retreat. The man who focuses on himself until he wins sharpens his instincts to recognize these fleeting moments, for they do not return. Delay once, and opportunity becomes regret. Seize it, and regret belongs to your enemies. Weakness spreads like a disease through a kingdom, a company, or a life. Indulgence breeds softness, softness breeds negligence, negligence breeds collapse. The wise ruler does not allow weakness to fester, whether in himself or in those who serve him. He cuts it away early, before it poisons the whole. Severity in discipline is not cruelty, it is preservation. Just as a surgeon's knife wounds to save, so must the rulers will inflict pain to secure survival. The true battlefield is not always open, and the deadliest wars leave no corpses. They are fought in whispers, in signatures, in alliances crafted and broken in silence. To dominate is to master this invisible battlefield, where perception is as lethal as steel, where rumor topples thrones, and where silence kills swifter than an arrow. Here, patience is your armor, secrecy your sword, and vigilance your shield. He who fails to master this hidden war discovers too late that he has already been conquered without a battle. Power is not inherited, it is defended. Even when a crown is passed from father to son, the inheritance is only a moment of possession, not a guarantee of survival. Each day, the crown must be earned again, not by lineage but by vigilance, not by entitlement but by strength. He who believes himself safe because tradition favors him is already lost, for tradition bends under the weight of necessity. To focus on yourself until you win is to remember that nothing is permanent, neither loyalty, nor fortune, nor dominion. What endures is only what you are willing to guard with unrelenting discipline. Men will forgive mistakes more readily than they forgive weakness. A ruler who errs but appears strong may still command obedience. A ruler who hesitates, who shows fragility, who exposes fear, awakens contempt even among those who once revered him. Contempt is deadlier than hatred, for it destroys respect. Hatred can be managed through fear, but contempt cannot be undone. Therefore, preserve dignity at all costs. Let your enemies despise your ruthlessness, but never allow them to dismiss your strength. The greatest victories are often invisible, for they are the battles prevented, the rebellions silenced before they rose, the rivals crushed before they gathered courage. A ruler must learn to take satisfaction, not in the applause of conquest, but in the silence of stability. For the measure of dominion is not how loudly it proclaims itself, but how deeply it embeds itself in the fabric of necessity. When men believe your rule to be as natural as the rising sun, you have achieved the highest form of power, power without question. Do not mistake allies for friends. They stand with you so long as their interests align. But interests shift like the seasons, and today's ally becomes tomorrow's conspirator. Expect it. Prepare for it. Use it. An ally can be more dangerous than an enemy, for he knows where the armor is thin, where the gates are unguarded, where the doubts are hidden. To survive, treat every alliance as temporary and every bond as conditional. Trust not in affection but in advantage, for advantage alone holds men steady. Discipline is not only for soldiers, but for rulers. He who indulges every desire, who speaks every thought, who reacts to every insult, reveals his own change. A ruler must command himself more than he commands others, for without self-mastery, his dominion is illusion. To focus on yourself until you win is to wage war upon your impulses, to conquer pride before it betrays you, to silence anger before it exposes you, to deny indulgence before it weakens you. He who commands himself is unassailable, for no rival can exploit what does not exist. Remember always that time is both ally and enemy. It erodes power for the negligent, but strengthens it for the vigilant. The patient ruler outlasts his rivals, for ambition burns quickly while discipline endures. Let time work in your favor delay, when delay exhausts your enemies. Wait when waiting drains their hope. Strike when the years have made their defenses brittle. To command time is the rarest form of mastery, for it requires restraint in victory and resolve in hardship. But he who holds it commands not just the present, but the course of history itself. The pursuit of domination is a study in endurance. Many rise swiftly, carried by fortune, charisma, or circumstance, but few remain. The ascent is a test of boldness. The survival is a test of discipline. Boldness opens the gate, but discipline keeps it guarded. He who focuses on himself until he wins does not mistake the first taste of triumph for the banquet. He eats sparingly, he watches the room, he studies every rival hand reaching for the same table, for he knows the feast of power never ends, and those who grow drunk on early victories are the first to be devoured. Men believe they act freely, yet they are bound by instincts older than memory. They fear pain, they desire gain, they envy strength, they submit to necessity. These truths are constant across time, across lands, across every structure of rule. The ruler who forgets this chases illusions. The ruler who remembers it builds upon stone. Command is not the invention of new laws of human nature, but the precise use of those already written in the marrow of men. To dominate is not to change men, but to calculate how their unchanging impulses can be turned to your advantage. Fortresses of stone can fall, but fortresses of perception endure. If men believe you invincible, you need not fight. If they believe you indispensable, they will defend you themselves. Therefore, let every act, every punishment, every reward, every silence contribute to the fortress of your image. Do not build it hastily, for weak stone crumbles under pressure. Build it deliberately, so that when enemies test it, they find themselves exhausted before the first crack appears. And when the fortress of perception becomes stronger than truth, you have secured the rarest kind of rule one defended not by force, but by belief. Restraint is as much a weapon as violence. To strike at every provocation is to scatter strength and expose weakness. The ruler who cannot endure insult, who must avenge every slight, reveals himself to be ruled by others. But he who absorbs, who waits, who chooses his moment, turns insult into opportunity. To focus on yourself until you win is to harden your spirit against the need for immediate satisfaction, to learn that the timing of power is often more decisive than the force of it. The blow that comes too soon is wasted. The blow that comes at the perfect moment is remembered for generations. The crowd admires spectacle, but the true game is played in silence. A word withheld can shape a war more than an army unleashed. A glance, a gesture, a pause. These are instruments of rule as sharp as any sword. For men are not only creatures of reason but of imagination, and their minds will finish the shape of the threat you leave incomplete. Give them shadows, and they will see monsters. Give them silence, and they will hear judgment. To dominate is to know when to speak, and when to let fear speak louder in your absence. No manescapes envy. The higher you rise, the more countless eyes will measure your success against their own failures. This envy festers, sometimes in silence, sometimes in conspiracy. Do not seek to extinguish it. You cannot. Instead, turn it to your advantage. Let them exhaust themselves whispering, while you move silently toward your aim. Let them gather, while you sow division among them. Let them believe they act freely, while each step brings them closer to their own undoing. Envy cannot be destroyed, but it can be directed, and in that direction lies your preservation. In the end, the path is not one of comfort, but of necessity. To live under command is to exist at the mercy of others, but to seize command is to walk forever with the weight of vigilance upon your shoulders. There is no crown without solitude, no throne without enemies, no victory without scars. Yet it is better to carry this burden than to be carried by the will of others. Better to shape destiny with your own hand than to be shaped and discarded by those stronger than you. The world does not ask whether you are good or whether you are worthy. It asks only whether you can endure. Men will judge, men will praise, men will curse, but their words are fleeting. What remains is the structure you build, the force you impose, the legacy you carve into the marrow of history. To dominate is to accept that you will never be universally loved, that you will be feared, resented, envied. But these are not chains. They are signs that you have bent the world to your presence. Focus on yourself until you win, for the enemy is not only outside but within the weakness that tempts you, the doubt that whispers, the desire to rest before the battle is done. Master yourself, and the world becomes manageable. Fail to master yourself, and even the smallest rival will undo you. Self-command is the first empire, the foundation upon which all others are built. Without it, every conquest is hollow. With it, every hardship is survivable. There will come a moment when silence surrounds you, when no counsel can decide for you, when every eye waits upon your word. In that moment, you will understand the true meaning of rule, not to please, not to comfort, not to be adored, but to decide, to impose, to endure. Domination is not the act of crushing all opposition. It is the refusal to be crushed, the will to remain unyielding until the last breath. And so the law stands, unbroken across centuries. Dominate or be dominated. There is no middle ground. The world divides itself into rulers, and the ruled into those who impose their vision and those who live within another's. Choose then where you belong. If you would rule, do not wait, do not falter, do not surrender. Focus on yourself until you win, because only the unshaken, only the relentless, only the indispensable will endure.